The next best predictor of lifetime success is conscientiousness. Of the two aspects of conscientiousness, orderliness and industriousness, the better predictor is industriousness. So the question is, what can you do about your industriousness? There's a strong genetic component, but you can work on micro habits. The best micro habits, this is partly to do with this future authoring program processes. I think the best thing you can do with regards to your conscientiousness is to set up some aims for yourself, goals that you actually value. The future authoring program helps people do that, and it helps you do a situational analysis of your life more than a psychological analysis. The questions are something like, all right, you're going to have to put effort into your life. You need to be motivated to do that. What are the potential sources of motivation? You could think about them in the big five manner. If you're extroverted, you want friends. If you're agreeable, you want an intimate relationship. If you're disagreeable, you want to win competitions. If you're open, you want to engage in creative activity. If you're high in neuroticism, you want security. Okay, so those are sources of potential motivation. You could draw on, tailor to your own personality. But then there are dimensions that you want to consider your life across. And so we ask people about, well, you know, if you could have your life the way you wanted it in 3 to 5 years, if you were taking care of yourself properly, what would you want from your friendships, your intimate relationship? How would you like to structure your family? What do you want for your career? Well, how are you going to use your time outside of your job? And how are you going to regulate your mental and physical health, and maybe your drug and alcohol use? Alcoholism, for example, wipes out 5 to 10% of people. You want to keep that under control. Maybe you develop a vision of what you would like your life to be, and that associates the goal. Well, once the goal is established, and then you break down the goal into micro processes that you can implement, the micro processes become rewarding in relation to their causal association with the goal, and that tangles in your incentive reward system. You know, we talked about the dopaminergic incentive reward system, and that's the thing that keeps you moving forward. And the way it works is that it works better if it produces positive emotion when it can see you moving towards a valued goal. Better have a valued goal, otherwise you can't get positive motivation. The more valuable the goal, the more the micro processes associated with that goal start to take on a positive charge. And so what that means is, well, you get up in the morning and you're excited about the day, you're ready to go. And so as far as I can tell, what you do is you specify your long-term ideal. Maybe you also specify a place you want to stay the hell away from, so that you're terrified to fail as well as excited about succeeding, because that's also useful. You specify your goal. As a unique individual, you want to specify goals that make you say, oh, if that could happen as a consequence of my efforts, it would be worthwhile. The question is, why do something? Doing nothing is easy. Why would you ever do anything? The answer has to be because you've determined it's worthwhile. Where should you look for worthwhile things? You could consult your own temperament, and the other would be, well, you kind of look at what it is that people accrue that's valuable across the lifespan. You need family, friends, career, educational goals, plans for time outside of work, attention to mental and physical health, etc. You know, that's what life is about. If you don't have those things, all you've got is misery and suffering. Once you set up that goal structure, that's what you should be doing at university, is trying to figure out who you're trying to be, right? You aim at that and use everything you learn as a means of building that person that you want to be. And I really mean want to be. I don't mean should be, even those things are going to overlap. And it's important to distinguish between those, because that's partly, and this is back down to the micro routine analysis. So if I was saying, well, you're going to try to make yourself more industrious, specify your goals. How are you going to hit something if you don't know what it is? That isn't going to happen. And often people won't specify their goals too, because they don't like to specify conditions for failure. So if you keep yourself all vague and foggy, which is real easy, because that's just a matter of not doing as well, then you don't know when you fail. People might say, I don't want to know when I fail because that's painful, so I'll keep myself blind. That's fine, except you'll fail all the time then. You just won't know it until you've failed so badly that you're done. That can happen by the time you're 40. I recommend that you don't let that happen. That's willful blindness, right? You could have known, but you chose not to. Once you get your goal structure set up, you think, if I could have this life, it might be worth living. Anxiety-provoking and threatening, and there's going to be some suffering and loss involved. The goal is to have a vision for your life that justifies your effort. What do? Turn down to the micro routines. This is what I'm aiming for. How does that instantiate itself day to day, week to week, month to month? The schedule can be unbelievably useful. Google Calendar. It's like, make a damn schedule. Stick to it. What's the rule with the schedule? It's not a bloody prison. That's the first thing people do wrong. They say, I don't like to follow a schedule. Well, what kind of schedule are you setting up? I have to do this, then I have to do this, then I have to do this, and then I just go play video games. Who wants to do all these things that I have to do? Set the schedule up so you have the day you want. That's the trick. If I was going to set up the best possible day, practically speaking, what would it look like? Then you schedule that, and there's a responsibility that's going to go along with that, because if you have any sense, one of the things that you're going to insist upon is that at the end of the day, you're not in worse shape than at the beginning. If you have a bunch of those in a row, you just dig, you dig yourself a hole and then you bury yourself in it. It's like, sorry, that's just not a good strategy. It's a bad strategy. Maybe 20% of your day has to be responsibility and obligation, or maybe more than that, depending on how far behind you are. But even that, you can ask yourself, okay, well, I've got these responsibilities. I have to schedule the damn things in. What's the right ratio of responsibility to reward? You can ask yourself that, like you'd negotiate with someone working for you. You got to work tomorrow. Okay, I want you to work tomorrow. You might say, what are you going to do for me that makes it likely I'll work for you? You could ask yourself that. Maybe you do an hour of responsibility and then play a video game for 15 minutes. You have to negotiate with yourself, not tyrannize yourself, like you're negotiating with someone that you care for, that you would like to be productive and have a good life. And that's how you make the schedule. And then you look at the day and you think, if I had that day, that'd be good. Great. You'll probably hit it with about 70% accuracy, but that beats the hell out of 0, right? And if you hit it even with 50% accuracy, another rule is, well, aim for 51% the next week, or 50.5% for God's sake, or because you're going to hit that position where things start to loop back positively and spiral you upward. And so that's one way that you can work on your conscientiousness, is plan a life you'd like to do that by referring to social norms, rescuing your father from the belly of the whale. The other way is by having a conversation with yourself, as if you don't really know who you are. You won't do what you're told. You won't do what you tell yourself. It's like you're a bad employee and a worse boss. You don't know what you want to do, and when you tell yourself what to do, you don't do it. You should fire yourself and find someone else to be. My point is, you have to understand you're not your own servant. You're someone you have to negotiate with, and you want to present the opportunity of having a good life too. And that's hard for people because they don't like themselves very much. So, they're always cracking the whip and then procrastinating, and it's like, God, it's so boring and such a pathetic way of spending your time. And you know what that's like, because you probably waste like 6 hours a day. And I think we did an economic calculation about that a while back, right? Your time's probably worth $50 an hour. You're not getting paid that now, but you're young, and so this is investment time, and what you do now is going to multiply its effects in the future. So let's say it's $50 an hour. If you waste 6 hours a day, you're wasting about $2,000 a week or $100,000 a year. You need to know what your time is worth. So let's say it's not $50, it's 30, whatever. Maybe it's 100. It's somewhere in that range. One of the things you should be asking yourself is, when you spend an hour, was that, well, would have I paid someone $50 to have had that hour? And if the answer is no, maybe you should do something else with your time. It depends on whether you think your time's worthwhile. If you assume your time isn't worthwhile, you don't just sit around in a state of responsibility-less bliss. What you do is you suffer existentially. And so that seems like a stupid solution.